Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Transportation Planning Organization meeting of the Livable Roadways Committee. My name is Joseph Cicero, and I will be chairing this meeting today, held on Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022. Roll call, please.
Councilman Citro.
Yes.
Cal Hardy.
Yes.
Una Johnson.
Here.
Mark Hudson.
Here.
Michael Marino.
Here.
Melissa Colazzo. Peter S. David Hay is excused. Marianne Abramson. Emily Hinsdale.
Here.
Tony Monk.
Here for Chris Thompson.
Larry Josephson.
Here.
Karen Kress. Matthew Lewis. Ben Nisley. Scott Drainville. Bobby Edwards. Jason Jackman.
Here.
Catherine Coyle.
Here.
Arizona Jenkins.
Here.
Carlos Ramirez.
Present.
Sarah Hendricks.
Here.
Christina Steffen.
Here.
Sandra Piccirilli.
Here.
Matthew Pleasant.
Here.
And do we have 9 in the room?
That we do.
Okay, we do have an in-person quorum, and I do need to let you know that some members are participating virtually due to medical reasons and the local declaration of emergency.
Would everyone please join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as read from our prior meeting on January 26, 2022.
So moved, Marino. Second.
We have a motion made by Ms. Marino, second by Mr. Hardy. All in favor, say aye.
Hold on. We have one communicated edit that was sent by email by Sarah Hendricks. On page 7 is some discussion that we could not tell who made the discussion. So it's, unknown at this time. So if you guys could look at that and tell us who made that, I can read it to you if you need to, or maybe Gail has it handy.
I can, just give me a moment.
Would someone confirm that you're seeing the agenda?
We are seeing the agenda.
Okay.
Does anyone in the room have minutes with them
I'm scrolling to that page.
without having to look them up? My suggestion is we go ahead and wait until next month's meeting to approve these minutes, and then we can review them and add directions or deletions. Let's move on to our first. We have Ms. Christina Acosta with us from Crew. Excuse me.
Actually, the first half of the presentation is Jason Jackman, and followed by Christina Costa. So let me make Jason presenter. He'll do the overview of the program, and then Christina was a student of the program.
Good morning, everybody.
Jason, you should have control.
Okay.
And we're seeing a blue screen, just a plain blue screen so far.
Okay. Let me get the slideshow.
Okay, now we see, presenter mode.
Okay, so you see the notes?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
not the notes, but the second slide. So yeah, there you go.
How's that?
Full screen, thank you very much.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and get started. thank you all for having me here this morning. Happy to be here. My name is Jason Jackman, Research Associate with the Center for Urban Transportation Research. I'm going to talk about the Tampa Bay Citizens Academy on Transportation, a year in review. So very excited to talk about this, and excited to hear Christina Costa's presentation as well. And I've already heard it from our class. She's a joy to work with the program. So to begin with, this funding that was brought the program was by the National Institute of Congestion Relief, NICER. We submitted a proposal Qatar just submitted a proposal back in December 2018 to the U.S. Department of Transportation, along with partners from the University of California, Berkeley, Texas A&M University, and University of Puerto Rico. Qatar competed against 51 applicants and won. So we were able to bring these different transportation programs dedicated to congestion reduction through multimodal solutions for the surface transportation system. And the program basically aims to produce tools for improving congested multimodal system in the immediate future. And which leads us to one of the programs out of NICER, the Tampa Bay Citizens Academy on Transportation, TBCAT. It was funded through NICER spring 2021 to spring 2022. It's a free 8-week virtual e-learning course to familiarize citizens with transportation in the city of Tampa. And so the course went from October 13th, the actual course, October 13th to December 8th, 2021. And it was a partnership with the city. So we worked with Alana Brazier, the city's Vision Zero coordinator, to really get things started with the program. And she was a great partner with the program. And we work really close with her, not only with the modules, but throughout the entire course, and also other staff and leaders from the city of Tampa as well, to really get this information across the students participating. The project management team included myself, Tia Boyd, and Christine Williams, all from Qatar as well. So they're great to work with, and we had a blast with the program. So it really felt like a webinar / podcast the way we were doing it. So it was kind of impromptu with our guest speakers and the participants, the citizens. So it was really fun. The TBCAT goals for the program was to plan, prepare, and implement a transportation course for citizens, solicit local partners for opportunities to guest lecture and serve on project panels, and evaluate the impact of the transportation course. So, those were our main goals for the program, and a lot of lessons learned. It was the first year we were doing this. We hadn't experienced something like this before. While we've given webinars before and other presentations, this was a different format. So each week for the 8 weeks, we had themes. We wanted to make sure all these themes were addressed each of the modules that we had our guest lectures and our discussions. And that included equity, diversity, and inclusion, livability and affordability, community engagement, sustainability and resilience, and innovative technology. So we made sure those were addressed in each of the weeks if possible. For the actual 6 weeks presentations. The last 2 weeks were the student presentations. Marketing the program, well, the course enrollment was limited to 25 participants, but due to an overwhelming amount of interest, the registration was extended. And so we ended up with a total of 28 persons participating in the TBCAT program, which actually was sustained throughout. So each week we had 28 participants. They came back each and every week. We know that citizens are busy with home, life, work, but they found the time to attend each of the meetings, each of the weeks. And we couldn't have been more happy about that, just the retention of the students coming back. And then we had to market the program before, though. I mean, it wasn't an easy task because what's the best way to reach citizens from the scratch? And it was really partnering with all the local agencies and using the social media platform. And again, from the get-go, this was during COVID, so we weren't sure if we're going to do this in person or virtual. So we stuck with virtual, and then we really marketed online, and it worked out. And once we had our local partners, the city, the county, and other agencies partner up and get the word out, it really did help and bring in more registrations for the class. Then the presenters, all the guest lecturers from different agencies around the Tampa Bay area. And, you know, I looked at it as an all-star cast. So, you know, each week I was like, oh, we got this person, this is awesome. And I think the class really appreciated the expertise coming from each of the guest lecturers too. So we had different agencies and coming in to give their experiences and basically, you know, tell them what their agencies do as far as the, you know, helping with the transportation system. So it was very exciting to have all the presenters come along. The class schedule, as I mentioned, it was an 8-week course. The first 6 weeks were actually actual modules and presentations from our guest lecturers. Weeks 7 and 8 were our student class participation presentations. And actually in between there, week 5.1, we had a lab weekend, and that was exciting because we had a walkabout down in the downtown area, downtown Tampa. And we had the city planning director, Stephen Benson, and Alana Brazier walk us around the city. It was awesome. And it was a firsthand look at some of the development with the street grid and everything. I mean, it was really exciting, and the students enjoyed it. The students that could actually attend, but it was a fun walkabout. I think it lasted around 2 hours. But I think we had a lot of great feedback from these students and the experience. So it's just a nice touch to the program. So I mentioned week 7 and 8, the class presentations. So they go through all the modules, they learn, and they come up with their topics of what they want to present at the end of the class, and they work throughout the entire 8 weeks to decide what they want to present on. So at the end of the programs, week 7 and 8, they're able to present their proposed solutions to their transportation system, whether it's, you know, their ideas how to improve transit, enhance transit, or propose solutions for infrastructure like sidewalks. We had a presentation on marketing to the citizens, bike trails, bike paths throughout the city. So it was very exciting, a lot of good interest. And the nice thing about this was that we brought in USF students to help with the citizens and their presentations. The opportunity was open to students pursuing degrees in urban and regional planning, public administration, global sustainability, architecture, engineering, and other related fields. So at the end, we had 8 USF students selected to help the citizens with their projects. You know, there's a lot of GIS work going on, so that really enhanced each of the presentations from these citizens. And also the students that were selected, they were able to go on the lab walkabout and attend the modules as well to get that experience and connect with the students. And that was the nice thing at the end of the day. It's these students were able to connect with the citizens and be a part of some of these proposed solutions and really pick their brain on, you know, how they're thinking and why they want these changes. So I think it was a learning from all ends, from the citizens to the students at USF. I mentioned the attendance. We had terrific attendance, 28 students coming back, not students, but citizens coming back for each presentation. So we do have recordings for the presentations and the live sessions. So if the citizens weren't able to attend, maybe they had something going on, we were able to provide them with a recording if they missed the live presentation. So this was all live, but it was still recorded. And then we evaluated the course at the end. We asked the students a few questions, but 64% of participants strongly agreed, with 27% agreeing that they have a better understanding of how transportation decisions are made. 100% of the participants report that this course gave them confidence to advocate for their community's transportation needs. 64% of participants state that after taking this course, they plan to attend more city council meetings. And then 91% of the participants agree that the expectation of the students was clearly defined, the course materials were easy to follow, and the course met their expectations, and that they would recommend this course to others. And then we asked a few other questions, the more qualitative questions, to describe what they learned through the course. And basically, you know, we had a really good feedback. And one of my favorites was that at the end, my hope is that more people would never think to take this course somehow, or would never think to take this course somehow and end up finding it in the future. So basically, they were encouraging others to take this. And some of them actually had said that if there's another course, a follow-up course, they'd love to take that and learn more about the transportation system. So we had a really good feedback for this this course, and it was a thrill to work with this with our partners, with the city and other partners, again, throughout the county, with the staff and leadership. So it's very exciting that we're working on our final report, and we'll be able to have that done by the mid-March. The next steps is submitting a proposal to NYSER for another year. So we've submitted that. So we're looking for a year 2 with this, and waiting for a response, and a continued partnership with the city. And if selected, the course will begin early fall 2022 to the spring 2023. And that's kind of a snapshot of the course and what we did this past year. But I don't know if you have any questions. Open for questions.
A wonderful presentation, Mr. Jackman.
Thank you.
Anybody have any comments, any questions? Here's a.
The course, it's teaching you about transportation. So when you take the course, what do you learn? How they will help us get better transportation.
Mr. Jackman, Arizona, you're asking about disabilities, or are you teaching how people with disabilities could better use transportation?
Yeah, because you're going to take the course. And you know what disabilities. You didn't mention anything about disabilities. You didn't mention anything about how that course will help the transportation get better. All I heard was you had a good time. You did this. You did that. But what are you going to do with the knowledge that you have?
Mr. Jackman?
I heard, yeah, it's kind of hard, difficult to hear. I think what the question was, you know, do we cover all grounds, you know, when it comes to access and equity? And, you know, we discussed that through each of the modules, whether it's transit, you know, connectivity with infrastructure. You know, we made sure that was the top layer to this. You know, we wanted students to know that you know, accessibility is one of the main focuses and one of the main barriers for any city. So when they were working on their projects, when the citizens were working on the projects, they knew that this is what they wanted to begin with. That's one of the in the back of their mind. They wanted to begin their projects and focus on the accessibility portion.
The question was, what are you going to do with it to make this transportation better? Even though you took the course, now what are you going to do with the knowledge that you had?
Mr. Jackman?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last question.
Mr. Jenkins asked, now that you have this information, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, how you going to
Thank you.
transportation better in town?
Yes, so these projects were definitely conceptual. However, each of the agencies that were involved, whether it's a city, county, or state, you know, it's this discussion that they're having, and it's not so much this consideration, but hey, they're listening to the public. The public is giving their information and what they would like change in their community. So it's up to these agencies whether they take these recommendations or, you know, take these considerations and use them for future projects or planning. It's really bringing the citizens to the forefront and having a platform for them to provide their concerns. And we gave that platform for the citizens. That was something that this course was all about, is giving that platform for citizen discussion. So, and I think having the local agencies involved only help that, help that process of listening to the citizens about their concerns and what they would like changed.
Any other comments or questions? I have one, Mr. Jackman. Every time that this group, City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Walk Bike Tampa, people who are advocating for more transit, mass transportation, we always get the naysayers. Is there a course specifically designed for the naysayers so that maybe we can convince them to come over to our side? Not that there are sides to transportation, I say that in jest. Can we maybe have a party bus for the naysayers and have them actually visually see what we're talking about? Jack, I'm not saying that, Judge, but actually I am serious about it.
I think leadership is, we have a lot of leaders in this community, and, we have people that are leading this charge, and this area, the city of Tampa, the Tampa Bay area is going through big changes. So I think we'll have some followers pretty soon.
Mhm.
I'd like to agree with you. Again, thank you very much for your presentation. If there are no other comments or questions, let's go on to Mr. Costa.
Super, thank you. I think you're making me presenter, Lisa.
Sent it over.
Good,
Yes.
yeah.
And yes, educating the public is definitely something that TPO is always strong and supportive of. So I'm really excited to see this program. And Councilman Citro, I did hear your request for additional transit understanding. So that could be something we could pursue, or enhance Jason's transit, section to like be a little more illustrative of the benefits. So that's great. All right, Christina, take it away.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I want to thank Jason also for, setting this course up, the curriculum. I was a student, citizen participant, and I was delighted to observe how many other citizens are actively engaged. I would also like to chime in relative to the attention that was paid to the disabled in our community. One of our students, Mauricio Royces, was a student in the class and navigates our community with a seeing eye dog, and so we did have direct representation in the student population. So that was fantastic. So I just want to confirm that you guys can see my screen right now.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So this is just one example, and I hope that that the Livable Roadways Committee will invite other students who had just amazing presentations. And I want to tell you that of all the students and all the conversations, not a single word was said about making our roads wider or car transportation at all. So that was very, I was delighted to observe that. So I'm Christina Costa. I was a student in this curriculum. I'm also on the board of Walk Bike Tampa, Bike Walk Tampa Bay. I sit on the Citizens Advisory Committee, and I do just about everything I can in our community to advance multimodalism. So my project for the TBCAT class was the neighborhood greenway that I'm going to share with you right now. So just a little refresher, a neighborhood greenway is a residential street that is optimized for bicycle and pedestrian travel, micromobility, the disabled, for all people of all ages and all abilities. ideally, neighborhood greenways run parallel to major roads. So in this case, we have Morrison Avenue that does run east-west parallel to Kennedy Boulevard. Morrison Avenue is a 2-lane bidirectional street, and it connects 12 neighborhoods. This is kind of a Google Earth map that you can get a sense of the geography. So it does run east and west. Some of the assets or attributes right now are that it's already a slow-moving street. There's a Selman underpass, which is very important, so we can navigate through the Selman Expressway. It connects 3 parks. There are 4 schools and places of worship along the corridor, 3 business and entertainment districts that represent probably in excess of 1,000 employees. Within a mile of each end, you can access all that downtown has to offer, as well as on the west side, the West Shore Business District. There are transit connections that intersect with this street. The street has also benefited from previous investment of traffic calming. Any of our neighborhood streets that run parallel to big boulevards kind of have a speeding problem, and so that has been addressed along this corridor, up to and including actually blocked vehicle access, car access, I should say, at one critical juncture. But it is not without its challenges. There are very poor surface conditions on Morrison Avenue. There are medium and one really monster high stress crossing that I'll show you more about. But we do cross all these streets I've listed here, and these are mostly signalized. This is the big intersection and kind of the biggest challenge that is present on Morrison Avenue. However, it is actually fantastic that there's single source ownership of most of what's wrong in this space, because the Henderson Boulevard and Dale Mabry are 2 kind of deal breakers that bisect the South Tampa Peninsula and make it very uncomfortable for most people on their bikes or anyone trying to traverse the peninsula and connect. But in our case on Morrison Avenue, those 2, Henderson and Morrison, are at the exact same location. So that leaves me hopeful that we can have some engagement with FDOT to improve the conditions of this intersection. And you can see it's very faint here, but where you can see the Morrison Avenue crossing that's where there's a block of cars traveling. Cars cannot traverse that intersection completely. There's restricted vehicle access to Morrison Avenue right there already. So I'm going to take you on a little virtual bike ride now. This video takes about 1.5 minutes. So let me get that going. And if one of you could please give me a shout out when I go full screen that you do see it, I would appreciate that. Can you see it?
Yeah,
Yes,
now
ma'am.
it's full screen. Mhm.
Super. So we're starting at Bayshore there, and you can see that it's just a really nice, mostly shaded street. This is Kate Jackson Park, but it is also the same location as Hyde Park Village, where we have a significant employment population and also the entertainment district. Next, I'm showing you where we cross under the Selman Expressway. This is South Howard Avenue. We have just a tremendous amount of foot traffic already. This is an example of the traffic calming that has been installed along Morrison Avenue as a response to the citizen complaints and neighborhood complaints about speeding. So we're very grateful for those investments that have already been made. This is one example of a place of worship, and also there's significant drop off there of students. This is another opportunity for a greenway. I just want to pause right here to give you a sense of the land use that makes it very difficult to choose an ideal neighborhood greenway in this area, and why Morrison Avenue is a good one. The land use there is a private golf course, and so it really cuts, it prohibits the east-west traffic through on the peninsula. Next, we have the approach to this, the intersection. So this is the one that I mentioned and gave you the aerial image of Dale Mabry and Henderson. This is looking westbound. If you could see in the upper right corner where those trees are, that is another place of worship and a school, Christ the King Church and school. But straight ahead there, the intersection would also take you to where Grady Elementary has many an access point. And then I wanted to show you the present day condition of the pedestrian island there. Traveling along, just a glimpse of, you know, the roadway conditions, and that's not even the worst of it. Sorry about that. I think we got interrupted, didn't we? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, but it's no longer on presentation.
Okay, let me see if I can't advance it all the way to where we left off. Apologies for the interruption. I'll have to give that caller a hard time when I talk to him later. Okay, we left off at Dale Mabry and Henderson. That's the island. Believe me, I've stood there on my bike. It is very, very untenable. More places of worship, the condition of the street. I just wanted to show you that other modes of transportation are becoming popular in that area also for non-car use. We have a park. Technically, we have departed Morrison Avenue because it does stop there, but by taking this additional angled, we arrive here at West Shore, at the West Shore District. So that is the entire corridor. And I'll wrap up now by showing you that I did a modal comparison of the same route, and a person walking would need almost an hour and a half to do that. Bus rides would be anywhere from an hour to, you know, an hour and a half. Driving would be 17 minutes, which is very comparable to the bike ride, but the drive time does not include parking. And I just want to say thank you to the TBCAT organizers, Jason, Tia, Christine. They all did an amazing job. The next steps for me with this idea are to present to you today and to gain some more support. What I ask of you today as Livable Roadway committee members is to help advance installation of lead pedestrian intervals with auto recall at each of the crossings already, because we do have a significant number of, you know, the corridor is already being used as a greenway, and there's heavy utilization there of students. And I hope that you'll help me advance either by making a motion or just writing a letter. I would really appreciate your support in communicating with FDOT to improve the crossing at Dale Mabry and Henderson. And now I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Costa. Any comments, any questions? Yeah. I'll go with Ms. Silva first.
Okay, I recognize this intersection. Cal Hardy probably does too, because that was identified as a very precarious intersection during the TPO school safety study. It was adjacent to one of the top 12 most dangerous schools that we studied and did recommendations. So there are some great recommendations that the city is working to implement. So you might want to take a peek at those to help expedite those recommendations, because they will have them from more than one source.
Thank you. Where would I find that information?
planhillsboro.org. Yep, if you just search TPO, or I always go there and just do school study and it pops up. It's right at the top of the page. I don't recall
you.
the school by name. You probably know the name, but it was one of the top 12. There's detailed recommendations and cost estimates in there. And I do know that William Porth and the mobility department have been working to implement that as best they can over time. They were folding some of the recommendations into, I believe, some stormwater improvements in the area. Others were being, approached with some traffic. They were trying to be creative because, as many governments have, very tight funding for safety improvements. So, but it definitely was identified as a priority for those reasons in the school safety study.
Thank you. I remember McFarland coming up on that study, but I didn't remember the others in this area.
Okay. Very exciting.
Ms. Johnson.
I think this is a great project, very much needed. Any east-west connection is great. I was wondering if you could extend it to get across West Shore. I know a lot of people like to cross over to that area for recreation purposes because it's the only way you can get to kind of pseudo waterfront. But I feel like it kind of is a nice terminus to end across West Shore. And West Shore is becoming much more busy, and people have a hard time crossing.
That's a very good point. I did, my proposed greenway does terminate at West Shore and Azeel where there's a signal. And so access further westbound is very, very easy, especially with the 275 interchange happening in the West Shore district. I know Michael is present and can share that further west would give access to Cypress Point Park and crossing through Rio. So that's an excellent point. Having access to the water on both sides of the peninsula is extremely valuable for our community.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hinsdale.
I just wanted to note that you may want to include this in your presentation going forward. One of the school that is just past that intersection is Grady Elementary. That's one of our Sidewalk Stoppers partner schools, and they average 189 walkers a day. In the last 3 years, they have doubled their number of bikers, student bikers. They have added a few traffic calming elements in that area, but there's still a large conflict of traffic and student walkers and bikers. As you head further down Morrison to the place where, as you noted, terminates and you sort of wind your way through the neighborhood, that's a major access point for another of our partner schools, Mabry Elementary and also Coleman Middle School. That there's a heavy amount of student bike traffic and especially unaccompanied student bike traffic.
Thank you. Excellent point. It does. I don't know. I know Matthew's on the Livable Roadways community or committee. Do those schools, those school districts, go to the east side of Dale Mabry for student population?
I can answer. Grady does cross Dale Mabry. Mabry would all be on the west of Dale Mabry, but Grady students have to cross Dale Mabry to reach. And Coleman does, yes, Coleman has to cross Dale Mabry as well. And I would also note that you're only a couple blocks north of Plant High School, so you do have a large amount of traffic that comes into the school there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Marino.
Thank you for the work, Christine. Driving through that intersection is scary enough. I can't imagine going through as a pedestrian. The one comment I was going to make, right after, once you get past Morrison the Dale Mabry Henderson intersection, you go past Morrison, you go on Morrison, you go 1 block past Church, and if you live in that area, Church gets a lot of cut-through traffic. But the next block is Grady. Grady goes all the way up to Kennedy Boulevard. FDOT is installing a mid-block crossing at Grady and Kennedy as a part of their Kennedy improvement projects. Grady would then go all the way up to Cypress and connect to a future pedestrian bridge going over Dale Mabry. In addition, once you go around the ball field there, Grady, I think, is uninterrupted. It does cross back over Henderson. But Grady is really uninterrupted all the way through South Tampa. I think maybe until it hits Euclid. So more in the same way that Morrison kind of has that straight line, and you can see it being an alternate route, I think Grady could have the same potential. And then if you think of it that way, and then you're taking some pedestrians off the Lois, which is used as a cut-through street a lot of times, you're starting to get the bones of a pedestrian-only network in South Tampa, which a lot of those places also are hitting parks and schools, which that's what the kids need, because ultimately those kids need to be safer because they're not surrounded by corridors in a car. They're walking and they're biking. So I think that if something like Morrison can be pulled off, then we start looking at what are those north-south cut-throughs that could also have the same benefit.
Excellent points, Michael. And yeah, Grady is another hopeful greenway, in my opinion, as is Lincoln Avenue, which I pointed out in the presentation. But I know the city's poised to advance neighborhood greenway development. This, I think, is just a great low-hanging fruit, if you will.
Yeah, I'll address that. So you're right, and a combination of depending on crossings, combination of Lois, Grady, and Clark all makes sense because there's different areas where we have barriers and stuff like that. But then Lois and Beta Bay is a future RFP location as well, and then we saw some Grady in the West Shore area. So yeah, I agree with that. We're kind of talking with Alana. Is thinking about how to handle our neighborhood bikeways, greenways, even the naming. And what we have discussed is kind of maybe identifying the neighborways is one of the things that she was thinking. Identify the neighborways on a map first, and then follow up with improvements as we can. So basically, we would establish the network first and then enhance them as we go, kind of thing. So that's one of the thoughts that we were thinking, just to get it out there and to let everybody know and just kind of identify, hey, these are the roadways that would probably be best for bike travel, you know. Additionally, with our capital projects, we do look at adjacent corridors for greenway improvements if we can provide one on a low stress biking facility on a collector road. We are developing Gray Street right now as kind of your east-west bypass for Kennedy, because Kennedy is not conducive to biking. So that's just that kind of stuff too. So there are things the city's doing to actively kind of get this program out faster, and we can spend the money to actually improve the roads.
Mr. Chen.
Cal, I have a question for you. South Tampa has a great interconnected grid of streets that, you could drive down one street and, you can turn at any street. And in order to create these greenways, you need, the right of way is very narrow with housing along most of these streets and so forth. Has any thought been given to creating one-way pairs and then taking out a lane and putting the greenway in the vacated lane?
No, you don't necessarily even need to do that because it's all about traffic calming on local roads anyway. So generally, so we do have a few in design right now, and you can do some kind of, like one of the things that they do is diverters that allow for, they say, like cars can't go through, cyclists can go through, cars have to make a block and kind of go around. So they get to a point, you go up around block, come back down. All right, so they have that kind of stuff, but generally what we're looking at is other measures that are a little bit less restrictive, and we are looking at one-way yield condition. We do have a couple projects that we are planning on doing that for the green artery, where we basically chicane one side of the road and it acts like a car is parked there. So, you know, if you have a car parked on the road, you yield on your side and allow other people to, this is basically a permanently parked car. So we do have things like that that we're looking at, but not necessarily changing any one-way or doing any kind of one-way pairs or affecting the actual flow of the grid. The biggest problem with South Tampa's grid is that you have three main barriers, whether it be highway, railroad tracks, or freeway, that do disrupt it significantly, and then those streets end up being highly used by vehicle traffic, but they're also the only cross access that we have for pedestrians and cyclists too. So especially down South Gandy area, they have a lot of those too. So, but yeah, we're trying to basically provide parallel corridors, but not necessarily do one-way traffic.
Let's go with Ms. Kress here first. Do you have a question?
I was just gonna say, I think Christine asked if there's any role for the Livable Roadways Committee to kind of advance this, and I don't necessarily know the answer, so maybe Chair or Lisa has a thought on what would be our best next move.
Lisa, can this body write a letter in support for Ms. Costa to FDOT?
Committees cannot write letters. All they can do is request that the TPO write a letter. What I use and find effective is when your motions are made in this committee, they get read and told to the TPO board. That's the quickest effective method to communicate things. Letters are a little, I mean, unless you have it like with the letter, would you be requesting the letter of the TPO board to the city of Tampa and what specific acts are in there? That's a little trickier, but you could state that you really think this is a great program. You love one of the student recommendations, and that you ask the TPO City of Tampa members, of which you're one of them, to do all they can to request their department's implementation of the suggestions.
Well, maybe it's time we stir the pot. But if we don't want to do that now, because you know what they say about pot stirrers, they have to lick the spoon. If you want to make a motion that we request something to TPO, I'll entertain that motion.
You want to hear from Mr. Jenkins first?
Sure.
Yeah, I have a couple of things that I don't want. I used to work at a pool over there, but very little amount. Western Walls, starting from the Western Walls, all the way up to Workout Boards. There is no sidewalks on both sides of the streets. Until they make a lot of workouts. They usually get a piece of the, they put on the bottom, it comes off again. We have to make sure when these kids are going out of school or going to the mall or whatever it is, that these sidewalks have to be completed. You want us to make a motion for this, make a motion for that. We have to sidewalks when it looks. I also want you to bus for our hands. There's too many buses over there who is like eating up for our hands. All buses are 15s. There's 45s, there's 15s, there's 32s. So I don't know what bus you go for our hands. don't think they get the football outlets. Look at ours. Let's vote put our name on any document. We sign any papers. We can put it in the week that we have everything in order. Will we make any moves for those parts? Just make sure we get everything in order. The budgets, the 4 or 5 budgets over there, and they can find every 15 to 30 minutes. That sidewalk is very, there is no sidewalk. So people gotta walk in it out. And he saw the flying down the road and then going to home. We can't get that way. Where do you want to go? So let's get that sidewalk. That's the money. I think it's making more than I feel. That we do the sidewalk movements on Wednesdays.
Sidewalk improvements on West Shore, correct?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I had a hard time hearing. Is there a question about
No,
sidewalks at West Shore?
I think, excuse me, correct me if I'm wrong, Arizona, that you were suggesting we get our house in order, especially with the sidewalks on West Shore. And we make sure that, you're going to make a motion to say that we want to have that done also.
That need to be done because there is no sidewalk period on West Shore. And then I heard you say you got a bus for an hour and a half. There's no way you want a bus for an hour and a half. There's too many buses for you to buy an hour and a half.
And it is common, Ms. Costa, with that, there's no way that you're gonna wait for an hour and a half for a bus to get there.
So she said that she rode the bus for an hour and a half. There's no way she did that. Look, every bus over there runs 15, 30 minutes. Every hour. So you should not have both bus for an hour and a half. Where do you go for an hour and a half? There's too many buses for you to ride an hour and a half. There is no sidewalks on the West Shore. Starting from the West Shore Mall all the way up to Boycott Boulevard. There is no sidewalk. I don't think the hall. I'm gonna think going down that road in the winter. And I think, a hard deck, they're gonna be a hard deck.
Would you like to make your motion? Ms. Costa?
Sure. Cal, tell me if I get this right. I'd like to make a motion that the TPO request that city and DOT work together to, what I'm looking for the Morrison Avenue Greenway, and maybe in connections, including, pedestrian bicycling conditions, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's okay. My only concern is that, it's putting, is this the most needed greenway that we have? That's kind of like, that's the only problem I have with that. Just necessarily, we have other data and everything with high entry networks and stuff like that, there might be another project that this would like.
Yeah, that makes sense. What if we specifically on then the Morrison, Dale Mabry, Henderson intersection?
I think that's
and
your
the
bigger.
crossings for bike and ped.
Yeah, I think that's probably the better idea, because that is obviously more of a need, and it is, just look at that and know the safety issues there. So I do think that might be the better motion, is just to focus on the intersection.
This is Lisa Silva, staff. It's just a suggestion, since I mentioned that the board has taken action on bike ped improvements for the school safety study at that same intersection. Maybe you could fold that into your recommendation so they could advance the implementation of the adopted school safety study and the consistent recommendations of the T-back Morrison Greenway project.
Hey, this is Matt Pleasant. I just got to kind of interrupt it again. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the button to raise my hand here. So, but I just want to just chime in and just note that I kind of, well, first thing, back to the north-south route that were mentioned. I just want to, I put the comment in the chat that I specifically have heard from Wilson Middle that they have some students that need to cross Kennedy, and that's kind of, I know that Kennedy's is kind of going to be the focus of some improvements, but I've heard, I just want to throw that out there that I've heard about that and specifically. And then also, Christine, thank you for the presentation. I think it sounds like a great project, but yeah, I would want, just like Cal is kind of mentioning here, I think I want some more information about the other greenways, and, you know, so before we kind of put the focus on any one specific greenway, just what's being considered elsewhere. I know we've gotten bits and pieces of that, I think, in other presentations, but just to help us understand and maybe work towards some sort of prioritization for them.
I think that's a great idea, Matt and Matthew, and I like where Karen was going also. It would be, I think, advantageous to incorporate what Lisa was suggesting on the school safety, and perhaps not even mention greenways at all in the motion, but rather focus on that really bad intersection, and also request LPIs at each of the crossings, just to ensure that those that are already using it or needing that corridor have enhanced safety. So we don't have to isolate, you don't have to put Morrison above any of the other considerations that are coming down the pike, certainly, but that intersection and those other crossings, simply by, if they're technologically ready to have LPI, you know, that could be, as I understand it, a flip of the switch in the Traffic Control Center, LPIs at each of the crossings, and then, of course, more support to advance safety of using Morrison to cross Dale Mabry at Henderson. Thanks.
Do you want to make this motion now, or do you want to do a little research and bring it back?
It sounds like the motion should be to implement the school safety study across the board, right?
Make that motion.
But no, I think the motion will be more streamlined to for the TPO to work with DOT. I'm not sure if the city would be involved on improved pedestrian bicycle access at Henderson, Dale Mabry, and Morrison, with a strong recommendation for LPIs. How's that?
Sounds good. Can we have discussion real quick? Emily, Ms. Hensdale, you want?
One, I will second Karen's motion. And two, I just wanted to clarify, the school safety study addresses this particular intersection because I know it looked at Henderson and Lois, and that was near one of the problem schools on that list, which is Coleman Middle School / Mabry Elementary. I don't know that it did hit that intersection, the Dale Mabry and Henderson one. I know it did the Henderson and Lois. We'll have to take, so I would think, yes, we should look at the school safety study, but I wouldn't veer off in that direction until we can clarify that was that intersection.
We can leave the school safety study out of the.
Yeah, and just, I mean, whether it's a school safety study or not, there are schools there, that is a problem intersection. I absolutely agree with your motion.
Any other discussion on the motion? The motion made by Ms. Kress, seconded by Ms. Hinsdale. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any proposed in this room or online? Let the record reflect that the motion has passed.
There's just positive comments in the chat online. Gail, can you confirm that you did get clear on the motion? Because it did not get restated in its edited format. Gail, did you get it?
Yes, I got it, and I will listen to the recording for the exact wording.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I have to remind us, we are over an hour into our meeting on one item. So if the committee would be cognizant of keeping their comments very short to the point, that would be great, because we do have a very lengthy and detailed presentation up next.
We have two reports from our very own board members. Let's go first with Mr. Kyle Hardy.
Lisa,
Okay.
you'll control the slide.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Yep. Where'd it go? Oh, it's in that over here. Okay. All right. You're seeing it, correct?
Yes.
All right. Take it away.
All right, we'll get right into it. You can go to the next slide. I'm going to be talking about the West River District Multimodal Improvements Project. It's the city's the bill grant that we were recently awarded in September of 2020. We've had a lot of redevelopment planned in the area for many years. So we're looking to try to improve the multimodal access in this area. Next slide. This is about, this has to do with our Vision Zero Tampa philosophy. This committee all knows what that means, but Vision Zero sets the goal to eliminate all roadway fatalities and severe injuries on our roadways while increasing safe, healthy, equitable mobility for all. It's a philosophy that says no loss of life is acceptable on our roads, acceptable, and we're designing our roadways to be more forgiving. So next slide, why Vision Zero? Well, on average, we lose 44 people to car crashes, pedestrian crashes a year, and 289 people are severely injured on Tampa's roads. Next slide. How do we get there? Safe systems approach. Safer people, safer streets, safer speed, safer vehicles, and post-crash care. Next slide. I'm just going to kind of going through those really quick just because I know this committee knows all about that. The project team, it's a multi-department project team with mobility, parks and rec. It's a kind of a joint project between those two. Our revenue and finance department, planning department, and our architectural review and historical preservation department as well. Next slide. Okay, so nuts and bolts. There's 6 segments to this project. We'll go into detail on each of the segments next few slides, but this is a good map overview. So if you're kind of looking for a slide in the future to kind of bring it up, this is a good slide to have right here. But we can go into more detail in the next few slides. Okay, so next slide. Segment 1. Wait for the next slide to pop up. Okay. So segment 1, it's a multimodal path from Platt Street to Brewery Street. The project costs on the bottom schedule here have been adjusted recently through our engineering consultant producing more accurate estimates. But everything on the map on the right, wait, we're only seeing half of it, y'all. There we go. Everything on the map on the right side, everything that's green and not dashed is existing facilities. Everything that is dashed or light green is proposed facilities. So the idea here, the big thing to take from this is that we would be looking at 2 overwater bridges underneath the, like kind of underpasses, underneath the Brewery and Platt Street bridges, and redoing the trail through the Tony Jannus Park area. Also, the area by Lafayette Place, north of the new novel development that they have right north of Brewery, and through Plant Park is part of an agreement, development agreement that's already in place. So that is part of the developer's responsibility. So that's why it's not shown as existing, but it's not highlighted in the in the box there. Okay, next slide. So segment 1, this is just a few. I said novel, I meant Manor. Sorry, Manor Riverwalk. Next slide. It's the next slide now. Okay. So just a few pictures on the left-hand side kind of show you the existing facilities that we have. The Platt Street, I'll go to the bottom left there. The Platt Street, go up one more slide. Sorry, go back one.
Sorry, there's a delay in go to. I'm on the slide you're referencing, but it takes a second for it to show up.
Okay, sorry. It's okay.
I have the segment one with the 4 pictures on the left.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Just to let everybody know, because we do get this question a lot. The Platt Street Bridge underpass has been closed for a while because it does not meet the minimum clearance that's required for a walkway. So with this project, we have to go out a little bit further underneath the Platt Street Bridge because there is it does go up, and then we go underneath between some of the other piers that are in the water there.
Would that be demolished then, the current thing that's closed off?
We don't have any plans to, but it may have to be. Actually, I'm not sure on that. I don't know if it really needs to be, but it does coordinate or it does conflict with new proposed construction. And since this is a design build in May, but I'm not expecting that to happen. And then the only other one I want to point out is on the top right. I said novel, but I'm getting my developments confused. Manor Riverwalk. That one's already built as is with the pattern pavers. Okay, we can go to the next slide, Lisa.
Okay.
And this one's just a kind of a closer up view of the map once it gets to there. All right, so this is just a close up view of the Manor Riverwalk and a piece of that kind of highlights that section on the slide on the right. You can go to the next slide. All right, so these are conceptual in the sense that they are very conceptual because they're just 2 lines, but you kind of see how far out we're going to get to our 88 concerns. So that's really all you got to pull from this slide. Okay, next slide. So I'll wait for a second. All right, so the trail segment for WFLA and the Lafayette Place development, there's a rendering on the left side that kind of shows the underwater bridge as proposed per the development agreement. And then the development agreement itself, the attachment is on the composite exhibit C is on the bottom right-hand side, so you can kind of see what we're looking at there. I do want to let y'all know that the bridges that we're looking at, we're not planning on, we're kind of leaving it open. We don't know what they're going to look like. They might not look like the ones on the east side. In fact, they probably won't. They'll probably be a lot more simple. It's kind of a different feel on the west side of the river than it is on the east side. So when you see this rendering, don't get attached to the aesthetics of it. We really don't know what the aesthetics are going to be. That's part of the RFQ that's coming through. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so let's load. Here we go. All right, so this is just a portion of segment 2 that goes from through Plant Park, and there's some trail, some living shoreline, and some other I think amenities that we're planning in that segment there. Okay, we can go up to the next slide.
Did you say that one?
It depends on the area, but I think the minimum width here is 12 foot for the majority of this segment here. And then I'll tell you where the area by Ridgewood Park, I think the minimum width is 18. But everywhere else it's 12 foot. And when we get to Columbus, I'll kind of explain those areas. Tampa Preparatory School, that's a gap that we currently have. There have been plans in the past to do living shoreline there, so we do have a good idea of what is needed in that area. But we'll be looking at completing this project. The Cass Street crossover that is currently there now will remain. So the RFB crossing, the trail width might get widened, but the RFB crossing in that location will remain there as it is today. crossing locations, really the only place we could put it was sight distance and avoiding driveways. So, and we cannot get under the CSX bridge. So that's the big barrier there. That's why we're not going underneath the Cass Street Bridge. Okay, next slide, Lisa. This area here behind Blake, it is existing. It's shown as dashed, but it needs some repairs, and we'll be enhancing it with lighting, some living shoreline, and some other park amenities as well. So that's why it's shown as dashed, but it is an existing trail, because I was a little confused on that myself. All right, next slide. Okay, so this is the area where currently there is no trail. This is where the trail behind Blake High School ends, behind the ball fields. And then the plan is, at this point, we lose control of the waterfront, and it's all privately owned. This is kind of right by the area by Richland River. So the idea is that we would go through the kind of crossover, go through, what's the road there? It's Oregon, and then across Rome through the MLK Center area there, and then through the new West River development as well, and then connect to Rome Avenue at that portion kind of on the west side of this. All right, next slide. Okay. Segments 1 and 2, the living shorelines. The idea is to use native vegetation to stabilize the shorelines, maintain natural continuity of the land and water interface, enhance shoreline ecological processes, and we have a USACE nationwide permit number 54 or individual permits. So the conceptual design that I mentioned earlier by Tampa Prep is on the left-hand side there. And then the living shoreline, that's one that's existing by Julian B. Lane. So we'll be looking at doing more of that along the entirety of the park. And that kind of goes to what I was saying about the aesthetics here. This is supposed to be a much more naturalistic trail, not so much as a downtown urban riverwalk. So it's a little bit of a different, most of it's going to be on land anyway. So it's a lot different in that aspect just right there. All right, so segment 3, we do have a few complete street segments that are part of this. Platt Street is the first one. This one goes from Rome Avenue to Bayshore. The biggest things to communicate here is we're trying to, one, do a separated bike trail or bike path on one side of the road. It is going to be one way. It's a cycle track. I would imagine that people will probably use it as a cycle track, but don't get confused with the cycle track on the picture here. But it will be signed and signaled for one-way travel. The other thing, if you notice, it shifts the cars, the travel lanes over to the south there, and to include parking on the north side of the road. Right now, it's really, really rough if you're walking on the north side of the road, but you're right up against traffic. So this kind of balances that roadway a lot better, and it allows for us to have a much better pedestrian experience, low stress experience there. And there are areas where we're able to add parking on both sides of the road. So there might be areas where there's parking on both the south and the north. We're also including several RRFB enhanced crosswalks throughout this area. And the big thing that's not on here is, that's not necessarily shown here, is redoing the Bayshore and Platt Street intersection to be a lot safer than it is today, including changing the signalization from Platt Street and Bayshore northbound going at the same time onto the Platt Street Bridge, and change that to a phased approach to where one goes at the other. That's a much safer operation for everybody involved, including vehicles. So that's a big thing there that's not necessarily shown on the graphic. Okay, segment 4, Rome Avenue from Platt to Columbus. This is just the map. We can skip to the next segment. to kind of show you all what we're looking at. All right, so this is what's existing already in the recent stormwater project City of Tampa did, right north of Kennedy. We're basically going to build this section for the majority of room. So it's going to go like that until you get to Spruce Street, which is north of the interstate. At that point, there's a significant difference in the current section and the use on the east side. That's where the new development's going. That's where there's a park already there at the MLK Center. So at that point, it will go to a trail section. So there will be a large trail on the east side of the road, east side of the road there that will connect, and that's right where the connection comes in from off the river. So that's the idea for that. But for the majority of room, we are looking at adding buildings similar to what we did for our stormwater project. All right, segment 5. All right, the image at the bottom is just the county's current plans for resurfacing. It's not anything, and it's actually not even current. It's changed since then. So that's not really applicable, but we didn't have a rendering at the time this presentation was made. The idea on Columbus is we're not changing much. We're going to be looking at doing ADA changes to the sidewalk there, but we're not looking at doing holistic changes from what the county is already proposing in their resurfacing project. The only big change I will say is the Columbus Drive Bridge. We are trying to get a separated, physically protected bike lane, and I shouldn't even say bike lane, a bike area on the south side of the bridge, and kind of combining, putting the traffic railing on the inside of the bike lane, between the bike lane and the vehicles, and then designating that space as bike space so they can handle two-way traffic rather than being a directional bike lane. Right now, the bike lane as proposed is going to be on the inside of the traffic railing, and then you have the pedestrian area, and the pedestrian area has some really hindrances in the way. So it's not really good for cyclists to use that because they basically have to walk their bike across the bridge. So now we're trying to get them an area to drive on, or to ride on, and then separate them from pedestrians and vehicles. So that's the big change there. Ridgewood Park. Karen, by the way, as you asked, Columbus Drive, that area will not, we won't be able to do 12 feet in that area. So that's one of the first area where we slimmed down. You get the next slide. I don't know if it's still waiting for segment 6. All right, segment 6 is the Ridgewood Park area. This is an area where we're doing a trail along the median of Glenwood. Glenwood is a very traffic calm. There will be a very traffic calm roadway. Actually, it is right now because it's under construction, so you can't drive on it. But we'll be putting an 8-foot trail there. It should. The roadway itself should be traffic calm enough to ride in the roadway, but there will be an 8-foot trail there. There is a small segment that's already built for the butterfly garden, and that's the picture on the left. That will cross at Ross Street to the south, Ross Avenue to the south, go across Ross Avenue, and then come down North Boulevard underneath the bridge to connect to the rest of the Riverwalk within the Heights. So that's segment 6. And that's the end of the segments. So we get the next slide. I'll briefly touch on this. This is just the road yard master plan, and the little orange arrow there on midway is the trail connection, proposed trail connection. But how that goes through there, we don't exactly know, but we'll be making that connection with the development. And then next slide is just a prettier version of what you just saw. And then the next slide. All right, so this project is a multimodal overhaul of the West Tampa West River District area. And it's just one single part of our emerging low stress bike network. And we do have some other projects that we're looking at. Bayshore and Flat intersection improvements is part of this project. But the Brewery Street Bridge and Cass Street Bridge, those are designed and shelved where they were surtax projects, but we feel very confident that we're going to be going after some funding for that, and I do have good feelings about that, just because they're quote unquote shovel ready. So hopefully we'll get some funding on that one. But the Burr Main Street Bridge is a big change with our multimodal access into downtown and a vital connection to both the river walks, and that's right there on the rendering. Columbus Drive resurfacing the county is doing, that's going to be a big change in that area. Cleveland Street, Rome traffic signal, Cypress Street, complete streets, that's a project that we have planned. The Green Spine cycle track is growing and going to continue to grow and get completed, and we should be completed with that by calendar year 2025, all the way from Howard to 21st Avenue. Laurel Street and Boulevard traffic signal, Main Street visioning. Our planning department has gone out and looked at the neighborhood plan for West Tampa and have done some visioning for Main Street overhaul. Ridgewood Park neighborhood improvements, that's what we're building right now. And then our West Tampa plan. You can go to the next slide. So everything that we're doing with this project is going to adhere to the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines. That's ADA for public agencies, which is more restrictive and ends up having a kind of wider widths, things like that. Our scoping requirements provided sidewalks are required to be accessible and usable by persons with disabilities. Our technical requirements, pedestrian access program, accessibility, pedestrian signals, transit stops and shelters, and on-street parking are all required to be ADA accessible. Our supplementary technical requirements take ADA building standard provisions and adapt them to right-of-way use application. That's just the public right-of-way. That's the ProWay, what that's talking about there. And then there are guidelines that incorporate shared use path as well. All right, community and stakeholder outreach has been extensive with the neighborhoods, the CRAs, Friends of the Riverwalk, Friends of Henry, Plan Park, the schools. Basically, we were meeting and doing agency stakeholder meetings for months now. So we've been doing a lot of individual meetings as well as public meetings as well, including Tampa Lighthouse for the Blind. So, and the Mayor's Alliance for Persons with Disabilities, or with disabilities. All right, next slide. Cultural Resources Assessment Survey. Basically, as part of a federalized project, we'll need to do the cultural resources. So we will be having looking at that and having a keen eye towards historic preservation. Next slide. All right, timeline. The grant agreement on the City Council agenda is scheduled for March 17th. That's the first step. The FHWA target for FH execution of the grant agreement is June 30th, 2022. The NEPA approval is August 2022, and the substantial construction completion December 11th, 2026. So starting in March, that's when the design build process starts really going, and then you probably start seeing construction out there, sometime in the year 2023, I would imagine. All right, next slide. So complete the FHWA, these are our next steps. Complete the FHWA grant agreement and budget narrative documentation. We have done that. Public engagement and stakeholder outreach is ongoing and will remain ongoing throughout the life of the project. Cultural resources and NEPA clearance, June 21 through July 22. That's the deadline. Finalize design build scope or score RFP package. Is that we're working on that, and that's been finalized in February. And that's where we refine the scope of work, draft the contract, do the draft contract, and give all the attachments and reference documents so that people can bid on the project. We execute the grant agreement with FHWA in March. That's the City Council date, March 17th. And design build contract, design and construction, 2023 through 2026. here's all our agency stakeholders, you'll know them all. They're mostly, a lot of them are in the room, but NACO is one that's a little, might not know, but that's the National Association of City Traffic Officials, I think, organization, something like that. But they develop a lot of standards for use of city roadways that work better for cities than they do for like highways and stuff like that. Next slide. Just some cuties enjoying facial road treatment. And next slide. This is just a a map that probably needs to be updated, but this is a map showing some of our bike facilities downtown. But really, in some of the proposed facilities, we really need to work on a map that shows all the low stress, because our urban core is really the entire city. I mean, most of the city is part of our urban core, and we're really densifying in key areas. And this kind of low stress bike network allows for that densification and eases traffic in the long run. So it's really, we're trying to make biking attractive as a mode of transportation, not just safe, but attractive. All right, next slide is question and answer. If anybody has any
Comments or questions?
Hey, good morning. Sorry. This is Matt Pleasant. Sorry, again, I
You're
just wanted,
recognized.
thank you. Thanks, Cal, for the wonderful presentation. And I loved at the end, you're trying to make biking an actual competitive mode of transportation, for people to actually an actual real choice. So that's wonderful. And I just wanted to kind of address some of the specific things related around Stewart Middle School, and you kind of show the path going through there. Thank you for the early conversation with the school district we had about the project, and some of the renderings I saw showed just a lot of interaction between, potentially a lot of interaction between some of the campuses there and the Riverwalk in that section. And I just want to emphasize the need to kind of keep those conversations going, because it may end up being sort of a need for sort of a robust joint use agreement with the school district to kind of make sure that vision is successful, with the need to kind of route some of the path potentially through school district property, and maybe even open up certain things like Stewart's Track for use during non-school hours, things like that. So there's specific kind of security concerns that we run into that kind of put a hamper on some walkability concerns. There's a need to kind of make sure there's only like a single point of entry that come out of, that came after the Parkland shooting and things like that. We would have to kind of work through those issues. So it's just a general sort of encouragement to kind of keep that conversation going with the school district and top of mind, because I think that's kind of a critical kind of link in this project. So again, thank you for the presentation.
And understood, and definitely I agree with you there.
Any other comments or questions? Ms. Chris.
Such an amazing project, game changer for Tampa. I have specific questions about Columbus, and maybe Larry, this question will be more directed to you because I think it's a county project, but are there going to be signalized intersections at Rome, and maybe even some improvement at Ola, which is quite the north-south bike boulevard? Do you know off the top of your head? Or?
No, I don't.
I can answer on that one. Okay. So Columbus and Rome will not be signalized now. There is an RFP planned at Riverside, and there's a traffic separator that prohibits left turns onto Columbus at that, and then off of Columbus onto Riverside Drive. That's right after the bridge. Is a very bad site visibility problem. Yeah. But the RFP will be further to the south, and there's a pedestrian refuge area too. So we achieved that without the site visibility problem. But that one's there. The Rome intersection we have looked at for signalization, and that's something that I'll have to look at in the future. But their project is strictly resurfacing, so it's kind of limited to what's in the what's on the pavement only. But I know there is some concerns, traffic and other concerns, the intersection of Rome being signalized, but it's stuff that we have to still work.
Okay, it's on the table.
The resurfacing project may change some of the language with striping, but, and of course, it's going to fix ADA compliant things like detectable warnings and reconstruct ramps.
And my last comment is just go as wide as you can afford, because, you know, the east bank of the Riverwalk is crowded.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and you know, the having room there is a viable use for other, you know, kind of more commuter type bikes and stuff like that. That helps too. But you know, it all connects to the cycle track, and there's going to be multiple ways to get downtown. And the big thing is this takes care of 2 more river crossings, because Columbus becomes bikeable, and Platte Street becomes a lot better because the laneage on that one changing. And then with Vereen, you know, as more and more we can get rid of these terrible river crossings, the more connected our area becomes. So.
I don't mean to cut anybody short, but we have about 25 minutes left, and Ms. Hendricks is going to give us a presentation, which she is going to be asking for a motion. If we lose one person in this room, we will not have a quorum. So.
Right. And then this is Lisa Silva. I just want to point out why we made comments on the previous presentation with the Christina Costa's request for action. You can see in this presentation that they've done lots of the great recommendations that were suggested during the Morrison Greenway suggestion, but they've done all the analysis. They balanced it out with the equity concerns of the city. They've done the cost estimate. Anyway, so when we make requests for all great improvements in other areas, it makes it challenging because you can't get everything accomplished at once. So that's we don't want to suppress any actions or enthusiasm from this committee. We're just trying to let you know that in the big picture, planners have to balance out all the needs of all the communities and many, many topics. Okay, so let's get going with. All right.
We can get started. Thank
Yes.
you. I'm Sarah Hendricks.
Excuse me, Ms. Hendricks, you are recognized.
Thank you. Sarah Hendricks. I work at the Center for Urban Transportation Research, University of South Florida. I also provide technical support to a transportation management organization in Hillsborough County. It's known as New North Transportation Alliance. And I'm going to talk about commuter benefits ordinances, also known as transit benefits ordinances. Those 2 phrases are interchangeable. This is a recommendation that originally came out of a study that Cutter did a couple of years ago for implementing transportation demand management strategies on a regional level. But then this past summer, the conversation got started again. Christina Costa with Pedal Power Promoters approached the CAC and asked for a renewed conversation about transportation demand management. And then Ken Bowden, who is with Commute Tampa Bay, that's our regional commuter assistance program through T-BARDA, he joined that conversation, and I was invited as well. We made a presentation back in October. Then again, I presented to the CAC in February to talk a little bit more about what we were recommending, which is to ask the TPO board to send a letter to its member local governments, which is Hillsborough County, cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, and Plant City, to ask them to consider adopting commuter benefits ordinances in their municipalities. So the goal here is what we all want is a safe, what I would say, world-class public transportation, multimodal transportation system. I think we need to think big here, and we want all of that in a livable community. And it can be an overwhelming goal. Where do we start? And so this is a proposal that provides a starting point, a bit of a nudge. It's a proposal that's business friendly, employer friendly, employee friendly. And could you go back just one, Lisa, on the second slide? So the recommendation is to the Hillsborough TPO board to ask them to send a letter to their member local governments to adopt these commuter benefits ordinances. And where this starts is we know that commuters are stressed out with their commutes, their trip to and from work. We know that it's in the top 5 reasons why an employee will quit their job. We know information from the Society of Human Resource Managers that when an employee quits, it takes average $4,200 to recruit, hire, and train a new employee. It takes on average 42 days to onboard a new replacement employee. So you take those costs and you multiply that by the company turnover, and that's a lot of money. This is a big interest and concern on the part of businesses and companies, employers in our area, and this is a proposal that could potentially address that. It's an incentive that tilts the balance towards our public transportation system. And if you could advance the slide, thank you. So this commuter benefits ordinance proposal would ask or require the employer to do 2 things, 2 very simple things. First is to provide information about alternative transportation options that already exist in our community that is available to their employees. So in other words, the employees might think that the only way that they can get to and from work is to have a car and drive to and from the work site. That's not true. The employer would provide information, perhaps during their onboarding of new employees, and they provide other kinds of information about health benefits, et cetera. This would just be an add-on to that conversation about all the different benefits, program services that are already available that can enable employees to use transportation alternatives. Things like if they joined a van pool, started a van pool, that's $400 subsidy a month per van pool. Very few people know that. The up to 6 free guaranteed ride homes that Commute Tampa Bay offers to people who use alternative transportation. This is stuff that already exists. Next slide, please. Oh, okay, you're on the right one. Thank you. So the second thing would be to require employees to set aside pre-tax employee income to pay for their commuter transportation expenses. That's the trip to and from work. It would allow up to $280 per month per employee set aside, and that money would go towards transit passes or van pool expenses. And so the idea is, this is based on our existing internal revenue code that empowers employers to provide what are known as fringe benefits, and there's like 7 different kinds. One of them is the qualified transportation fringe benefit. And so basically what we're suggesting here in an ordinance is to require the employer to simply offer to set aside employee pre-tax income so that that employee could use their earned gross income to pay for their transportation expenses. And what I would foresee is the conversation would go something like, okay, the employer tells their employees, I'm offering this benefit to you. Are you interested? And probably most of the employees who have cars are going to say, well, thank you very much for that offer, but I'm not all that interested. And so then the employer would say, okay, and that's the end of that. What I also anticipate is that there's going to be some employees, a few smart ones, who are going to think about this and do the math, and they're going to say, wait a minute, what if I took my pre-tax earned income and I spent it on a $95 a month hard unlimited ride, 31-day pass, 3 transfers, okay, $95 times 12, that's less than $1,200 a month for all of that transportation service. And I'm spending over, at least $8,000 a year. By some estimates, it's over $10,000 a year if you add all of the expenses of car ownership. So what if I switched to public transportation? I would be saving thousands of dollars in household budget that I could be putting towards food on the table, an emergency budget, in case of emergencies for my household, education, all of those things that we don't have money for. We know that there's a lot of very hurting households in our community. This is a way to help our households. It's also a way to help employers to recruit and retain employees by providing this benefit. So employers would pay less on their payroll taxes. Employees would bring home more of their earned income. Next slide. And so there's other reasons why to have a transit benefits ordinance. Equity is a big one. So we know that most employers, maybe not in the downtown Tampa, but most employers, Hillsborough County-wide, provide a free parking space to each one of their employees. That's a lot of money that's out of pocket on the part of the employer. But from the employee standpoint, what if that employee doesn't have a car? What if that employee doesn't drive, doesn't want to drive, cannot drive? Well, there's this transportation subsidy in the form of a pre-parking space that employee cannot use. And that's not fair. That's not equitable. So the transit benefits ordinance would help level the playing field by providing this benefit. Another thing I want to mention is that bottom center map of Hillsborough County area that was provided by Commute Tampa Bay and Commute with Enterprise basically depicts the origin destination of current van pools in our community. I don't know the exact number. I think it's over 170 van pools operating right now that tend to serve the longer distance trips. So van pooling is considered a form of public transit. And what happens is HART and other public transit agencies, including T-BARTA with its van pool program, they report passenger miles traveled to the federal government. The more passenger miles traveled you can report that your transit service provides to your community, the more in federal formula funding comes back to the community and feeds back into further developing the public transit system. So this creates this positive feedback. The better your transit system, the more people are going to ride it, the greater the passenger miles traveled, the more money comes back to the region. So it's this positive benefit. And then last slide, please. So where we're at right now is the CAC passed a motion in their earlier February meeting to ask the TPO board to send a letter to the member local governments encouraging them to adopt a commuter benefits ordinance or a transit benefits ordinance. The letter talks about all of the resources available to the local governments that can help them for free craft an ordinance. So the initial letter, I had emphasized the benefits to the employer because I anticipate local governments are going to say, why would we burden our employers with these requirements? What I think is going to happen is employers who see this, they're going to realize that they can save a lot of money through this type of action. I think the letter the draft as written emphasizes what I think the TPO board is most interested in, which is travel time reliability. I'm not sure if something like this would improve travel time reliability immediately, but it's a piece of it. It's a start. It's a nudge in the right direction. So that's what I'm suggesting.
Beautiful. I think the objective of our transit should be getting cars off the road and move people. Thank you for that. Comments or questions? Ms. Johnson.
I was just wondering if bicycles were included in this. I know it's a big empty spot that we're all trying to promote.
Yes. So the Internal Revenue Code used to provide $20 a month for bicycle commuters for their commuting expenses by bicycle. In 2018, that was removed from the Internal Revenue Code. What I believe is the case is it's supposed to be put back into the Internal Revenue Code in 2026. So yes, that's the goal.
I guess with biking to work, it takes a little bit more time than a car. So maybe the benefits would be allowing a shower that takes time plus the commute time. Maybe there's some sort of time analysis.
Right. Although I noticed Christina Costa's on one of her slides, she showed travel time, and the bicycle travel time was maybe a few minutes more than driving. So,
but I know when I bike in the summer, you do need to shower.
Yes.
And so there's like just having those amenities and
absolutely
being cognizant of the extra time needed. So.
Right. So the transit benefits ordinance wouldn't necessarily address that. This is specifically the pre-tax income set aside. But I think it's the sort of thing that you start with this and then the employer realizes, hey, there's something here. And then they begin to think about what other kind of commuter benefits can I provide to my employees to extend this benefit further. And that's typically what happens.
Ms. Kress.
Yeah, thanks. This is great. It's a good first step. We know that it could go much further, but we're probably not ready for it to go much further at this point. I wondered if there's been any conversation with SHRM, the local HR group, and if not, if you think that'd be a good idea, my boss is a member, I'd be happy to help maybe facilitate that conversation, because it feels like if they came out in support of this,
Yeah,
it would help.
I think that's a great idea. So SHRM published an article about it. I don't know if SHRM actually came out advocating this, but I think that they would see that this as a great possibility and opportunity. I think that's a great thing to do, is to contact SHRM and say, hey, would you work with us on this?
Okay, so yeah, let's talk offline and get that conversation going. I'd be happy to make a motion. Discussion.
Please, go ahead. I will entertain a motion.
So I'd like to move that the Livable Roadways Committee recommends to the TPO. I haven't actually read this letter, but I guess a similar letter to what the CAC sent, suggesting that local governments adopt these trip reduction ordinance.
Is there a second to the motion? I have a motion made by Ms. Kress, seconded by Mr. Josephson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Is there any opposed from anyone online?
There's not opposition, but we do have a request to comment from Tony Monk with the City of Tampa.
Mr. Monk?
Hi, I don't know how we represent the parks. I represent Parks and Recreation, so I'm not going to vote for or against this because I think there's a lot to dissect, but I would like to advise this committee that the state government, the state legislature is entertaining bills that if you raise the cost of doing business on any business, then they can sue the local government. And it's preemptive, and I know we have strong feelings about state preemption, but this would be, seems like it would be a target for that. And it's something to keep in mind moving forward if Tallahassee sees this as an encroachment on business, and really considering where we as a community want to invest our energy and money, it may be more prudent to spend our money on painting a bunch of road lanes red and putting buses in them, where we're not putting a burden onto business, because any of these items sounds really low risk and easy to accomplish, but what's the limit for the size of business that has to provide these incentives and showers and stipends? And is it countywide, or is it just a city? Is it just downtown? There's a lot to consider there. So I just wanted to sort of offer that counterpoint.
Yeah, and what I would say is that those are the kind of details that each local government would have to work through, and we offer through the Florida statewide TDM clearinghouse that free technical assistance to consider all those different things. I'm aware of that proposed bill. There's another proposed bill that would require a business impact study to be done. And what I say about that is bring it on, because this is the kind of proposal that can save employers money. So I'm not afraid of those bills. It's really sorry that our state government is trying to preempt the local governments from self-rule, but I'm not concerned with those kind of bills with respect to this particular proposal.
Ms. Hendricks, I thank you very much for that statement.
And then I would offer that Christina Costa, also a partner with Sarah Hendricks in this effort, offered in the chat that businesses do not have to provide anything. They simply have to share transportation options.
Yes, that's the information piece, to just share information about available options.
Okay, I think we're waiting for the vote.
I was going to make the comment, but we'll forgo that. There's a motion made by Ms. Kress, seconded by Mr. Josephson. We do have all in favor in this room. Again, is there anybody online that disagrees or votes no? Let the record reflect that the motion passed unanimously. Ms. Kress, you're up next, and we have 5 minutes before we might lose the quorum.
I'll be so brief, and I don't think a vote is needed. This is just kind of an update. So I was able.
Could you speak towards the microphone since you're presenting in the room? We're having a tough time picking you up, or remove your mask, please. Thank you.
So I had a strategic plan done for downtown for non-motorized counting, meaning let's count bicyclists and pedestrians in addition to all of the vehicles we've been counting for years. And through that, learned about a statewide non-motorized count program that FDOT does. And they, it was District 7's turn to host these temporary counters. So we put together kind of a team, the West Shore Alliance with Michael, Christine, the city, myself, and the TPO. And we identified 13 locations in District 7, I'm sorry, in Hillsborough County. We also worked with Hillsborough County on it. They were part of the team. We identified 13 locations, 7 of which were in the kind of the greater downtown area that I selfishly was asking for since it's my project. And so we have those counters out right now. They are going to get pulled back up on Friday. We did not advertise where they were because we didn't want the numbers to be, you know, inflated or deflated in any way. So we'll get that count information back from the statewide office. It'll be uploaded onto their website where you can go see what Miami's doing or any other district at any time. Those counters will come back to us for another round in August. They prefer to keep doing the same site so we can kind of continue to help tell that story. So at a future meeting, I'd like to come back to this group and maybe others at the TPO to see how we can't get this program going on a more robust way. How can, if we're already counting cars, how can we just automatically add in counting bicyclists and pedestrians as part of that kind of, you know, standard operating procedures? And then how can we get some permanent or continuous counters? These are just kind of a 2-week temporary count, but it's kind of a good place to start.
Do you have a date in mind in the future to come back with this?
Well, I thought it might make sense as part of the UPWP process, which I believe is in the next couple months.
Okay. So if you would like to send Ms. Silva a date, we can put that on in a future meeting.
Sure thing.
That'd be great. My colleague Wade Reynolds has been presenting this to other committees. Karen was kind enough to do it for this committee since she's a partner in the project. So yes, we definitely have that on the radar to bring back the results. And then Christina Costa posted in the chat regarding this. The Dutch Cycling Embassy is advising the FDOT non-motorized count program. Doesn't get any better than that. All right. Okay, I guess I'll go back to new business. Is that okay, Chair?
Surely. Thank you very much, Ms. Silva.
Okay. Thank you, Karen, for filling in. So new and old business. Last month when I was up in Tallahassee at the Safety Coalition, I heard from my substitute, Gina, and the minutes that you had a micro-mobility blocking the sidewalk and the ADA access issues. So it's great discussion, and you wanted to hear more about that and the facts of what's so and how to resolve it. So I've asked Cal Hardy and Karen Kress, who are both very familiar with that, to say a few words to address it.
Okay, so I did ask the other Calvin about, he's our micromobility lead. So this is his response. Right now, the scooters are still operating under the pilot program. When it switches from a pilot to the citywide program, the scooters will have a lock-to technology that require the user to lock the scooter to a docking station. In addition, we will have an out-of-docking station fee that will penalize a rider who does not place the scooter in a docking station. We will initially implement these requirements in the downtown, Ybor City, and Hyde Park areas. Currently, the RFP evaluation for has been completed for the citywide program, and we're expecting the citywide program to be implemented in about 3 to 4 months. So basically, the scooters that you see on the sidewalk, the user has to dock them into a docking station. If he or she doesn't, then they get charged a fee. So that should eliminate a lot of the issues that we see with scooters blocking sidewalks. But right now, we're still operating on a pilot project. I don't know, Karen, if you have anything else to add. So, but that's it, Lisa.
Okay, and then anytime you do see one, there is a website on the City of Tampa's website where you can go report those issues, and the vendors are required to respond. So that's another little nugget. Then I will remind everybody that March is Florida Bike Month, not to be confused with the National Bike Month in May. It's our local bike month. So we have a lot of great bike month activities. I highlighted a couple that we already had the details of. And then there are web links in the Love to Ride campaign, kind of a companion to the previous study. Our agency, Plan Hillsborough, does a commuter choices week. Typically, with the pandemic, we kind of modified it to support the Love to Ride campaign as an agency, and we have little prizes and stuff. So that helps with Sarah Hendricks's suggestion to make it more aware for all the employees to know their options. So that kind of every year thing kind of helps our new employees, reminds old employees, helps them rethink, because again, if they do something other than single occupant ride to work, they get rewarded for that program. So that's what we're doing. And then big shout out to March 19th. There's an open street event from 12 to 4 in the 14th Street Green Spine location. Details in the on the city website, or I can provide it. They're unveiling some of the Vision Zero Quick Build, one of the Quick Build projects, and getting public feedback. So, and then they'll be unveiling their Vision Zero action plan just days prior to that. So congratulations to them. Love to see that and help them implement it. So that concludes my new and old business.
I got one thing, Lisa.
Okay, is Citro still present?
Yes, you're recognized,
Yeah,
Mr. Hardy.
I'm sorry, I forgot the co-chair. All right, so just real quick, Davis Boulevard has been, our project is almost complete there. So if you have a chance, go ride out on Davis Boulevard. We haven't done the village section yet, but the rest of the portion has been really improved. A lot of new crosswalks, and a raised crosswalk as well, leaving the island. So check that out. And then Columbus Drive is almost done as well. And we have several meetings coming up in next month. And I'll send, Lisa, I'll probably just send you an email on the dates, but a few mobility project meetings coming up, and we're continuing our ongoing public input for other projects such as South Product. So
that would be great, because not only will I share it with the committee, but we can give it to our social media team to help promote to get you there.
Yeah, Lisa, we started a public engagement calendar for internal use for mobility, and I'm going to give you that email so that you can put these, all the TPO stuff, just have that as our email, because we all get that, those meetings. And that's what we're going to start doing from now on. But the city, we're trying to encourage everybody to put everything onto one central calendar in the city, so that we can have a public engagement calendar. So we're trying to work on that as well.
Sure, great. And so did I hear that you were going to organize a bike month activity to see the new Davis Island Boulevard improvements?
It's going to be all month long. You just go out there. You don't have to ask me about it or anything. But no, it is really cool. I'm very proud of it. It was an in-house design. One of our new engineers actually did one of his first sign and seals. So his first designs, and it came out, I had to say so myself, pretty spectacular. So go check it out, and just wanted to plug that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for plugging that, because I recall when I coerced you to bring that topic to Livable Roadways back when it was in its design stage. So thank you. It's good to hear this getting wrapped up. Sorry, did I cut some?
Yeah, Mr. Jenkins had something real quick.
This weekend, if the music does both, you can take, buses, you can take the trolley down. It's dark and early F4. This Friday, it goes all weekends. Saturday, from 9 to 11. It's the name of 1 to 8:30.
Okay, so you can take buses and trolleys to the Gasparilla Music Festival or to Sixon Park this weekend.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right.
I think I'm vice chair.
Whatever.